Designer Sophie Wong is obsessed with finding tools, techniques, and methodologies for marrying digital fabrication and fashion, creating 3D printed garments with integrated electronics to an incredible effect. Here she is showing off some of her latest wares on a recent visit to the cave.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophie Wong. I'm a designer and a maker, and I love to make wearable technology projects. I especially love wearable tech projects that are expressive and artistic, so I make a lot of costumes and fashion pieces. I also really like to work with digital fabrication techniques, so I do a lot of 3D printing, laser cutting, and CNC milling in my work. And lately I've been working a lot with 3D printing on fabric, and I brought several projects here to show you today that incorporate 3D printing on fabric, some fashion pieces, and some experimental garments that really explore this technique. So the first piece I want to show you is this jacket. This is a purchase jacket that I added some 3D printed pieces to, and I also incorporated lighting into this piece. So this jacket has 3D printed diffusion panels on the shoulders and on the back, and these are pieces that are 3D printed onto a mesh fabric. That's a nylon mesh. And with this technique, you 3D print you start printing your model, you print one layer, and then you pause the print and insert the mesh fabric and then resume the print. And your fabric gets trapped between the first two layers of the print, and you end up with this flexible kind of panel. So I used these panels on this jacket to create diffusion for the LEDs that I integrated into the jacket itself. And these are programmable LEDs, so they can be any color, and I can even program different animations and colors into the controller board. So there's a controller that tucks neatly into the pocket, and I can change the animations and the colors with the buttons here. So the jacket is the first piece that I did using this technique, and I really wanted to try to push it further. So the next piece I'm going to show you is a garment that's a complete garment made using this 3D printing on fabric technique. So this entire garment was made using 3D printing on fabric, and I created the underlayer out of regular silk taffeta, and I'm using that as a backing for the 3D printed panels. So here's an example of the printed panel. When you're 3D printing on top of this mesh material and you add some weight to the print, you get a really lovely drape out of that. And so I wanted to really try to expand that to an entire garment, and that's what this dress is. So the whole piece is 3D printed in Filamentum Wizards Voodoo PLA. It's a really beautiful iridescent filament, so it has kind of a purple and pink sort of sheen to it. And with this piece, I really wanted to play with different shapes and patterns to create different flexibility across the different areas of the body. So a really interesting thing that I discovered when I was working on this is throughout the design process, I realized that all of the dividing lines on the piece could be used as cutting lines. So if there was an area that I wanted to redesign, I could simply cut along that line, redesign the remainder of that panel, and stitch it together seamlessly using my 3D pen technique. And that was really useful for iterating and determining what was going to be the best surface design to map it across the body. So integrating those design choices on the fly made for a garment that is actually pretty wearable. So what it feels like to wear this garment is sort of like wearing a sequined gown or maybe some chainmail. There's some weight to it, but you can really feel that it's a rigid material that's flexing around your body. It's a really interesting wearing experience. So this piece was really inspired by the new Klingon costumes in the newer Star Trek Discovery series. The costumes for the Klingons in that series are very kind of biological, but they also look sort of high fashion, and I really liked the sort of articulated design in those pieces. And so that's kind of the direction that I was using for developing the aesthetic for this piece. And that kind of helped me decide how I was going to create the shapes that could break up around the human body. So I have this kind of snaky panel in the front, and I have repeated those panels here, and then the rest of it sort of looks like armor, maybe articulated armor plating, all sort of inspired by sci-fi armor. After doing the full garment with the 3D printing on fabric technique, I wanted to go a little bit further with applying this technique to the curved areas of the human body. So I decided to make a headpiece. And that's this headpiece here, and it sort of became a cross between maybe a soft helmet or a headdress, or maybe even a wig with some of these flowing areas on the side. But this is an extension of some of the work that I was experimenting with the 3D printed dress. And this was an opportunity for me to explore a little bit more dimension in the printing. So some of these pieces are much higher than the pieces on the dress. And I also used a different filament for this piece. So for this piece, I used Quantum PLA from Matter Hackers, and this is 2-color filament that's one color on one side and another color on the other side. And when you see it in the filament form, it's actually 2 colors split down the middle. When you print it into a 3D printed form, it takes on more of a sheen, and you can see with different raised edges and all the different sides that the pieces are pink on one side and yellow on the other side. And I tried to play with this aspect of the material by printing this symmetrically. So I rotated my model so that the color change would be applied symmetrically on both sides of the piece. So because of the shape of the head, it curves only in one direction here, I was able to introduce more volume into the 3D printed pieces. So you can see these pieces that curve along the top of the head are much deeper than the pieces on the dress because they only have to flex in this one direction. Now I really like putting technology into my pieces too, so I wanted to get some lighting into these 3D printing on fabric experiments. And so the next piece I have is a collar that also uses a 3D printing on fabric technique, but I've also done that little trick of creating diffusion for LEDs and integrated lighting into this collar. I also really wanted to push the volume even more on the 3D printed pieces, so the height on this piece is much higher than any of the other pieces that I've experimented with, and it creates this really wiggly kind of science fiction jewelry form that ended up making really interesting sounds as well. That extra volume creates a lot of dimension, and because this is translucent filament, it also diffuses the light through these extended pieces. And so it creates a lot of impact visually. It also makes this really interesting sci-fi sound. And it still allows for a lot of flexibility and movement. And so it works when you lay it on your collar. Like this. And I have one more piece to show you. It's the latest thing that I've created with this technique, and I've come down to the cave here to show it to Adam.
Hi, Sophie.
Hey, Adam!
So good to have you in the cave and your incredible creations.
Thank you for having me.
I love having you here. I'm always inspired by what you're building, and I hear you have something to show me.
I do, and it's this glove. So this is made with the 3D printing on fabric technique.
Wait, what? Okay, sorry, I have to wrap my head around this. This looks like a mosaic tile, except that it moves.
Yes, exactly. So these are 3D printed shapes that are printed directly onto a piece of nylon mesh.
This is incredible. This is a different printing technique, obviously.
Yes, so this silver portion is printed with this is the top side.
Okay.
And all the white portion is the underside, the back side of the print.
And what is this flexible 3D printed?
Yes, the fingers are printed with flexible TPU filament, so they'll bend along the fingers.
Can I ask you just as a technical point, what glue did you use? That's a perfect joint.
Super 77.
Really? That's it?
Yeah.
I'm just totally blown away. It looks like a really positive grab.
Yeah, I think it'll stay on there for a while.
I can't get over how luxurious this pattern feels.
Yeah, it's really flexible and supple, and it's like you get a crazy amount of flex. So the wrist is actually a perfect place to use this technique.
Because it gives rotational flex all the way around.
Yeah, it really shows off how flexible it can be.
Is that EL wire?
No, this is silicone LED strand.
But it lights up.
It definitely
Can we light
lights
it up?
Yeah.
Dude. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna bring this in so you can see this. Check this out. This is like no maker of an armored gauntlet throughout history imagined that you'd be able to tile a glove. That is so gorgeous. I am just so excited by this. Is this built for a costume, or is this a test of some various techniques to learn?
So this was a test, but now I can sort of see in my mind the suit that I need to now build to go with this glove.
Dude, oh my goodness. There are so many possibilities about the way these lines can be drawn in order to like make this hug the body.
Yeah, it's really interesting, especially as a designer, that you can control the behavior of the material just through the surface design. So if I want it to flex more, I can cut more lines into it, or if I want it to have more structure, I can leave the pieces a little bit bigger.
Oh, wow. And also based on how thick you make them, you can have it bend into a structure.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my goodness. I'm overwhelmed by the possibilities. That's so incredible. Okay, what is this? Did you sew this?
So the white portion is a purchased glove, and then there is a black sort of sleeve that I sewed that goes over it, which is the backing for
really
this.
Cool looking.
Yeah, that's a really cool little piece of fabric in the bottom that I added.
Dig that. Dude, Sophie, this is so inspiring.
I'm so glad you like it.
Oh my God. Okay, here, gotta take a look at this again. Look at this. And I hope you're getting to see the way the reflections ripple across the surface is really awesome. Oh man. Sophie, like I said, every time you bring your work here and yourself, I'm inspired. I cannot wait to see what you do from here, because I get that this is a test and a kind of the beginning of an exploration. I have no idea where it ends up, and that's so exciting.
Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. You coming back next time to show us the next thing you built?
Yes, I can't
wait.
wait.
Okay, good. Done. See you guys later.